welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, just a quick video diary. We're just at the back end of February, as you can see. We've had plenty of snow. It's actually mostly melted away now. We had probably about 9 inches of snow over the past couple of days, starting kind of Thursday a little bit, and then Friday and Saturday came down. As you can see, the ground's been covered, so I've not been able to do much this week. You know, it's going now, but unfortunately this is going to cause a lot of moisture in the ground, so I'm not going to be able to do any digging or anything like that, you know, for the next week or so at least. But I just wanted to quickly show you the allotment in yet more snow. Okay, so in the greenhouse, as you can see, even though we've had this cold weather, the calabrese is still coming up, so it'll probably germinate a lot better as soon as we get a bit of warmth coming through. The broad beans have not yet come through yet, but obviously they're still under the glass, so that's sort of protecting them a little bit from the cold. The strawberries looking a bit sorry for themselves, but you know, they're still okay. Obviously this greenhouse is not heated, so so it has been getting a little bit cold. I don't know if you can hear one. There's some ice in the watering can, which basically proves that it has frozen actually inside the greenhouse, or at least got down to 0. The potatoes are pretty much as they were before. There's not a lot of change there, but ideally with seed potatoes you want to keep them at about kind of between 5 and 7 degrees. That's the best temperature to get them to sprout and that, so all being well they'll be okay, but it's not ideal them being up here really. But anyway, I managed to find the parsnips, as you can see, and I've dug a few parsnips out for lunch today. But anyway, that's what the greenhouse looks like at the moment. Okay, so from a jet washer point of view, I've used quite a few jet washers in my time, and I would strongly recommend, if you are going to buy one, buy a Karcher. They're available over the internet and available in sort of most hardware shops in the UK. This one cost me just over £100 a few months back, and I would recommend you go for at least a K4. And obviously with this particular model, which is the compact one, you get the standard lance which you see over there. You also get various other attachments that you can put on there for cleaning, so you know, various sort of surfaces like brick or paving and stuff like that. I typically only use the lance, to be honest with you, which is this particular one here. There's a couple of attachments on the lance. You can have this one that's like a fan, or you can have like one that's more of a point for getting into, you know, sort of more sort of detailed cleaning, if you like. But I pretty much only use the lance, which is the fan type shape. I use that for pretty much everything I use it for. But as I say, if you are going to buy a jet washer, there are various companies that make them, but I would strongly recommend you get a Karcher, because I've used other makes in the past and they're nowhere near as good. And you know, it can make the difference between it takes you half an hour to do a job, or it takes you a complete day to do a job, particularly if you're cleaning drives off and stuff like that with them. I've sort of cleaned my drive off with one of these, and it takes me probably about I don't know, probably about 6 or 7 hours in total to do it. Whereas if I use an alternative make, which I've tried to do in the past, it can take you up to sort of 4 to 5 days to sort of clean it all off, because it takes that much longer to clean it. So if you're going to buy one, Karcher's the make to go for. I would strongly recommend. There are various models out there. There are ones that are adjustable. Basically, I don't bother with the adjustable ones. I think, basically you want a jet of water, and that's okay. So I bought this one, which is basically not adjustable, but this will more than suffice for anything that I possibly need it for. The one thing I would recommend is when you first put it together, make sure that there's no air bubbles in the hose pipe leading to it, because that can lead, you don't want air pockets going through the pump. So make sure that the water, basically turn the hose pipe on, get water running cleanly out of the one end before you connect it, and then everything else should be okay. So anyway, I'll get on with cleaning the greenhouse. Okay, so at this time of the year, what you actually get is an ideal opportunity to clean out your greenhouse, because you've got no plants in here, and you've got sort of maximum access to all of the corners of the greenhouse, and also there's no plants in here that you're basically going to damage. This is really now the best time of the year to clean your greenhouse. Now, I'm cleaning this greenhouse for really two main reasons. One, I had a little bit of blight last year, not sort of too much, and it was pretty well contained, so I'm not overly concerned about that. But what I'm going to do is wash all the glass down, and sort of clean it because of that. But also, it's really important. Obviously, the things that plants need. One of the main things that plants need is light, and obviously if you've got dirty glass in your greenhouse, obviously that's going to massively reduce the amount of light that gets through to the plants, and then therefore the plants won't grow anywhere near as strong as they would do if the glass was nice and clean and letting all the light through. So yesterday what I did, obviously as you can see it's already pretty clean in here. Yesterday what I did is I came up with the jet washer, and basically jet washed all of the greenhouse down on the inside and on the outside. Obviously there's a few little bits that I've missed, but as you can see the framework is nice and clean, and the glass is sort of pretty much clean. What I'm going to do now is with some just with some washed up liquid and a sponge, I'm going to go around and sort of scrub all of the glass now with basically just soap and water, just to get the glass nice and clean, and to remove any kind of sort of trace of the blight, basically. So I'm just going to go around and do that now, but I just wanted to quickly show you what I've done so far. So the first thing I did was obviously emptied all the plants out, anything that that could potentially get damaged in here. Obviously anything that you don't want to get wet, because when you start jet washing things, basically everything gets wet. I've trimmed the grapevine down, and sort of taken out all of the leaves and all of the various bits and bobs, sort of the branches and sort of things I wanted to get rid of this year. So that's been cut right back now. As you can see, that's ready for this year. As soon as I've done that, I cleaned out all the plants and anything in here that was sort of in the way of cleaning the glass. And what I've done basically is gone outside, started on the outside, and I've jet washed all of the sort of the outside of the greenhouse, particularly the roof. There's still little bits of sort of moss here, but I've got basically moss growing all up inside the edges here. So I've kind of jet washed all of that, got all of that out. Obviously there are still bits there, because when you jet washing it tends to blast it everywhere. But I've kind of washed all that down, gone down the side and washed as much of this green algae off as I possibly can do. Obviously there are bits that I can't get to because of the things that are on the inside of the greenhouse. So I've washed all the outside, washed all the framework. You can still see there some of the algae that was on the glass there. Obviously I can't get around the back of there, but I will do with a sponge in a moment. One really important bit is where the glass meets, like here. What you can do is get the jet washer sort of up at that kind of angle, and it'll blow any sort of debris that sort of collects in that where the two pieces of glass sit together. Washed all round. Obviously I've done both sides of the roof, cleaned all the gutters out, and then obviously washed all the glass on the outside. Now that will get sort of the majority of the algae off and stuff like that. And any sort of nasty bits and bobs, but obviously what you do need to do is go back after with, as you can see, I've just got a normal washing up sponge with some nice warm water. What I'm going to do now is go around, wash all the glass, and then what I'll do is I'll get the jet washer out again and just obviously rinse it off and get rid of the any sort of the rest of the dirt that's on there. But that was the first sort of, I spent probably about 3/4 of an hour to an hour yesterday just jet washing all of the glass and the sides and everything on the greenhouse. It wasn't a reasonably sort of mucky state. I didn't do this last year. I typically do this every other year, to be honest with you, but I didn't do it last year. So this year really is the was you know, sort of, it was more than overdue to be done, to be honest with you. So I cleaned that all off yesterday, let it dry overnight, and then what I'm going to do now is sort of quickly go around with a soapy sponge and you know, sort of wash all of the glass. The framework is pretty much clean now, so all I need to do now is basically wash the glass, and then I'll come back up with the jet washer, which I'll show you in a moment, and just quickly sort of rinse it all down, make sure all of the algae is out of the way and stuff like that. Now, if you have had blight in your greenhouse, what you want to do is get rid of obviously any possible trace of that. What I do recommend is, if you have had blight really badly, is wash the greenhouse exactly like I'm explaining now. If you haven't got a jet washer, obviously a hose pipe and a small hand brush will do a similar job. Obviously agitate, you know, sort of wet the glass with the hose pipe and then agitate it with the brush, and then you can just go back over and sort of get rid of most of it. But what I would recommend is you go back over with some soap and water, wash the glass down, and obviously rinse it off afterwards. If you have had blight really bad in your greenhouse, what I suggest you do is remove everything out of the greenhouse altogether, and then wash it all down exactly as I'm explaining, and then also go back with Jay's fluid, even though it smells. What I suggest you do is wash it all down, and then make a solution up of Jay's fluid, and either spray it on or sort of wash it on. But I tend to spray it on, otherwise, you know, you get it all over your hand and you can't get rid of the smell. But so that's what I suggest you do. So I'm just going to go, as I say, I'm just going to go and sponge all these windows down now with some soap and water, and then I'll come back up with a jet washer and you know, sort of rinse it all down. Okay, so what I've done now is I've gone all the way around the outside of the greenhouse, sponged it all down as best I can. Obviously the extremities of the roof I can't reach, but I have jet washed those, so they'll be okay as they are. So I've been all the way around, scrubbed all the glass with a sponge and soapy water. So all I need to do now is go around and give it another jet wash to get rid of the residuals. Okay, so that's all the outside jet washed and scrubbed with soapy water and that, so that should be all of the glass absolutely perfectly clean. As you can see, what you do get is water coming in from the outside. Obviously when you jet wash up the glass, what you'll get is water coming through here, which typically sprays everything on the inside. So as I said at the beginning, if you are going to do this, make sure that your greenhouse is completely empty of anything that can get damaged by water. Because you will get water inside your greenhouse if you like it or not. Always start with the outside, get the outside clean, and then do the inside. That's the best advice I can give you. Right, so what I'm going to do now is go around and just basically sponge off the inside glass, make sure it's nice and clean all the way around, and then I'll basically just get the jet washer in here and just sort of rinse it off with that. So I'll just do that now and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so that's the greenhouse all sponged down on the inside. I've taken great detail in making sure I've got all of the bits that were close to the tomatoes that I knew that had blight, which is basically this bit here, and there's a bit down here. So I've scrubbed that really thoroughly, got you know, sort of right in the grooves, all at the edges and everything like that. Made sure that's all perfectly clean. What I'm going to do now is quickly jet wash down the inside to make sure that's all rinsed away. The one thing I did not mention earlier on is all of the wood, like this here, like the wooden shelf and the wood around the edge, was also jet washed as well yesterday. So you know, that's all nice and clean. So obviously what I do need to take note of is, obviously, you know, jet washing and stuff like this is all well and good, but you're not removing the dirt, you're just moving it about. So you know, I do need to keep my eye open for you know, sort of blight this year. So if you did get it really bad last year, you know, jet washing like this will most certainly remove it from the surfaces which are near the plants, but it won't kill the spores off. Now hopefully over the winter they've died off anyway, but what I would suggest is you know, you get some J's fluid and spray around. As soon as you've done all this, spray J's fluid around and just let that sort of seep into the you know, most certainly the woodwork and any surfaces you've got in the greenhouse, and that will kill off any or the majority of bugs. So I'll just do the jet washing now. Okay, so as soon as you finish jet washing the inside out, what you need to do is open all the windows, because what you want to try and do as best you can is get it as dry as you can as soon as you can. So obviously, you know, assuming you haven't got lots of wind in the area, you know, just open all the windows up and the door up, and then just let the greenhouse sort of dry out, because what you don't want is obviously to be damp at this time of year. So so what I'm going to do now is just leave the windows open like that and let it dry out. And then I'll shut them up tonight, and all being well, the greenhouse should have dried out as much as we possibly can get it. Okay, so as you can see now, it's had the day to dry out. As you can see, the greenhouse is looking now pretty dry. So obviously, because of the time of the year, I'm now going to shut all the windows, because obviously the wind's picking up, and unfortunately you know, the weather's turning bad again. So I'm just going to shut all the windows up. I'm going to leave this one slightly ajar at the bottom there, just so there's a small amount of wind coming through. But as you can see, the greenhouse is now pretty much dried out. So the next stage in the greenhouse, which I'll show you in the next video, is to take off about the first 6 inches of soil out of the 2 beds. That'll be disposed of into the garden, away from any vegetables, because this soil's been in here, you know, all of last season, so there's potential blight in there. So obviously what I don't want to do is get that anywhere near where any tomatoes or potatoes will be. So I'll basically take off the first 6 inches, that'll go into the garden, into the flower beds, and then that'll be refreshed with nice you know, sort of clean soil from the vegetable patch, along with chicken manure and other things to make the ground nice and fertile. So that's what the greenhouse looks like at the end of the day. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put in some of the kale that I've got. Now I don't need too many of these. There's 250 seeds. I bought these over the internet, and these are like the Petrarch kale and the Scottish kale that Richard Sydenham very kindly sent me some seeds. So it's a similar variety to that. So they grow around sort of 3 to 4 foot high. The plants are quite big, and the thing I like about the kale, as I've said before, you know, you can sort of, you know, with the cabbage you've got to sort of pretty much eat the whole thing in one go, whereas with kale you can keep pulling at the leaves, and you know, more leaves will grow. So all I've done there is I've put in around kind of 2 inches of loose compost. I'm just going to with my piece of wood, I'm just going to tamper that down. Now brassicas do like the ground to be reasonably firm. Not sort of overly firm, but you know, you need to. Some seeds like the ground to be loose, but with all brassicas really, you know, they like the ground to be a little bit firmer than other plants. So I'm just going to get the seed out. Now these will obviously be small sort of brown or black balls. I don't know if you can see in there. As I say, I struggled to get this. These I've got probably about 50 seeds or so there. I struggled to get these in shops. If you go around garden centres and stuff in the UK, really the only kale that you get is the curly kale. And I find that the curly leafed kale isn't as good as this. Curly leaf kale can be quite kind of tough really, but those are the seeds. The seeds look very much the same as any other brassica really. They're either small sort of either black or brown balls, and exactly the same way as I did the calabrese. I'm just going to sprinkle them on as far apart as I possibly can do. You don't need to be overly fussy with these, because what you're going to do is obviously take these out, prick them out, and put them into pots. Now I'm not going to need anywhere near this many plants. I'm probably going to put in about 20 plants into my allotment, so there's about 3 times the amount there. So, but I think it's always nice to grow some extras, because what you can do is, obviously, apart from sort of picking out the best, you know, the best plants, you know, you can also sort of give them away to your fellow gardeners and stuff, like, you know, friends and family, to put in their gardens. So right, so I've just sprinkled a very small amount of compost over the top of those. You don't really need too much, no more than 1/4 of an inch, sort of 5 millimeters or so of compost. And again, what you want to do is make sure that they're all covered. And what you can do is, obviously, any kind of lumps like this that you get in the compost, you want to take that out. That's not going to help the seed. And as soon as you know that they're all covered, again, push down on the compost again like that, to make sure that the seed and the compost are in contact with each other, because that's quite important. Now, what you want to do is just give that a small amount of tap water to start them off, and then I'm going to put a piece of glass over there, just to keep the heat in there at night, because we are still having quite cold evenings. I'll save the rest of the seed. Now, this seed's going to be good until sort of 2000. I don't know if it says on there, 2019. So, you know, that's good for another year at least. And you do find that brassica seeds keep quite well, to be honest with you. So that's the kale that I'm going to be growing this year. As soon as they've got to kind of this big, or slightly bigger really, you want them to be kind of, I don't know, 3 inches or so high. That's when you prick them out, and then you prick them out into pots about that big, which will be probably in about 3 to 4 weeks time. Grow them on in there till they get to about sort of 9 inches high, and then you can plant them out into the garden. You can put the brassicas in this time of year. They're not so sensitive to the heat. You know they will germinate this time of year, and you can get them started and then hardened off, ready to go into the garden, which will basically free your space up in your greenhouse for other plants. But anyway, that's the kale for this season. Okay, so there's the kale, watered, and I've just put a piece of glass over with some lollipop sticks, just at one end like that, just so you got a bit of ventilation. I'll leave that like that for a couple of weeks until they've started to sprout. Obviously, then you take the glass off, and then they'll obviously grow along like that. So I'll just leave them there, and I'll show you in a couple of weeks what they look like, to prick them out into the pots, etc. Okay, a quick summary in this greenhouse. As you can see, the broad beans have come up. As you can see, they're all sort of starting to pop through. So I expect to see the others coming through later this week. The weather has warmed up. Obviously, last weekend we had quite a sort of cool snap, but you know, the plants have been okay in here. Really, it did get really cold in here, which wasn't ideal for the seed potatoes, but you know, nevertheless, you know, I think they'll be okay. So, quick summary: the broad beans have come through, as you can see. These are the ones that were from last year, and as you can see, there's actually flowers on these. So really, these need to be going outside before too much longer, because they're starting to flower. The calabrese, as you can see, is up now. So I'm going to let them grow probably another week before I prick them out and put them into pots, kind of this size. The strawberries, which are the runners I took last year, have started to spread new, sort of shoot out new leaves. So what I can do now, I'll let these grow a little bit more. But obviously, these leaves they're obviously dead. What you want to do is take them off, and then sort of new shoots will come sort of underneath. So any leaves that have got spots on like that, what you want to do, as soon as you've got some new leaves, what you want to do is take them off. The reason being is that's got sort of this sort of fungus which is on the leaves. The only way to get rid of it is to take the leaves off and either burn them or dispose of them. So I'll just put them over there for now. Right, the fuchsia, as you can see, there's still sort of little shoot there. All being well, that survived that frost that we had. I've not watered that yet. Okay, the onions, I don't know if you can see, but there is some signs of, I don't know if you can see that one there, let's put the glass down a second, some germination there, look, which is one just started to come through, so they are coming through. So, but I'll just leave the glass on those for now. These are the spring onions, as you can see. They're started to shoot. You can see the little white shoots coming through just here. So they are sort of starting to come. These are some strawberries that I had in the other greenhouse. These are the alpine strawberries, and I've had them in there for quite a few years now. And so I just took off all the sort of the dead tops and that. I just put a bit of fresh compost in there and watered those, so they should come back to life. And that's pretty much the rest of the greenhouse. So that's where we are, second week in March. Just a quick note on the broad beans. Now that they've shot through the ground, mice won't touch them. Basically, mice are after the seed. So as soon as they start to grow like this, you don't need to worry about mice anymore. So you can take the glass off. However, when they're in this stage, this is where slugs will most certainly be attracted to them, and slugs will completely wipe them out if you're not careful. So as soon as you take your glass off your broad beans, put some slug pellets over there, and that should stop the slugs from attacking the bean shoots. One thing that I didn't say earlier on is I put the dahlias, or some of the dahlias, in pots early this week. I've not watered them yet. There's those three there, and there's this one here. One of which I separated. I put the spade through the middle of it because it was too big to go in the pot. But I'll put the dahlias in, turn them upright, and put some compost around them. As I say, I've not watered them yet because we're expecting a cold snap this week. So, but next week, as soon as the weather starts to warm up, and we're kind of out of the threat of any further frosts, I'll give them some water and start them off growing. So, I hope this episode was of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.